Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into a fascinating book that really challenges how we think about success, failure, even reality itself.
Hmm.
At its heart, this book is exploring the often hidden massive role of chance randomness in our lives, in the markets, well, just everywhere.
Yeah, and it argues our brains are kind of wired to misunderstand this.
Exactly. Seeing patterns and skill where maybe pure luck is often the dominant factor.
Right.
So our mission right now is to pull out the really important bits from the book to help you get a clear picture of these unpredictable forces that shape our world.
And what's fascinating from the start is how deeply ingrained this confusion is for us, between skill and luck.
Hmm.
The book spends a good amount of time establishing this core tension. It
Hmm.
points out how easily we mix up concepts like, well, luck and skill, or randomness versus determinism.
Or even anecdote versus hard reality.
Exactly. It even uses a table of confusion early on to highlight these pairs because we are just so prone to getting them tangled up.
It feels like we're, I don't know, hardwired to simplify things, right?
Really.
The book makes the case that we're almost genetically predisposed to link big outcomes, like, say, economic prosperity or market swings, to really simple direct causes.
We want that clean narrative.
Yeah, like maybe it was the new president or a specific policy or even just, I don't know, some CEO's decision.
Rather than admitting that a lot of it might just be, well, random chance. Absolutely. Our brains crave those simple cause and effect stories, complex probabilistic stuff. It's much harder for us to process intuitively.
Right.
And this leads the book to bring up a very old but incredibly relevant story.
You're talking about Croesus and Solon.
Exactly. Croesus, the king renowned for his immense wealth, asks the wise Solon if he knows anyone happier.
And Solon gives that famous warning.
Yep. No man can be considered truly happy until their life is over because, well, unforeseen future misfortunes can always just erase past prosperity.
Wow, that sounds incredibly pessimistic on the surface.
It does, yeah. But the book uses it to make a critical point about what it calls rare events, or you might know them as black swans.
Okay.
Solon's warning isn't just about being a downer. It's a profound acknowledgement that these highly improbable occurrences can have massive life-altering impacts.
And we tend to just sort of ignore those when we look back or downplay them.
Precisely. When we evaluate someone's success or look at historical outcomes, we often discount or completely miss the potential impact of these rare outlier events simply because they didn't happen in that specific past.
The possibility is always there.
Always looms over everything, yeah. And one black swan event can negate years of apparent skill or good fortune. It reminds us that evaluating outcomes based only on what we observe in one timeline is inherently flawed.
And that brings us nicely to some of the amazing stories the book tells from the markets, which is a really random environment, right?
Well, definitely.
It introduces us to people like Nero Tulip.
Nero is such a key example the book uses to grapple with this skill versus luck problem. He's presented as someone you would assume is highly skilled.
Right. He's educated, PhD in statistics, working in finance.
Exactly. On paper, he fits the mold of a successful, knowledgeable trader.
And his trading style, his modus operandi, as the book calls it, seemed kind of calculated to minimize risk.
Yeah, focusing on lots of small wins and trying hard to avoid large catastrophic losses. It was a strategy that, maybe didn't look rational to traditional traders, but it was designed around the distribution of outcomes, trying to exploit certain statistical properties.
Focusing on outcomes skewed toward small gains.
Yes. But the book cleverly pairs Nero's story with another trader, John, to introduce you early on to this idea of survivorship bias. It kind of quietly plants the seed that maybe we're only hearing about Nero because he survived for a while, not purely because of his amazing skill.
Right. And then we get to Nero's red-hot summer, this period of just phenomenal success.
Followed eventually by significant losses. That anecdote is so powerful because it vividly illustrates how fragile even a seemingly robust strategy can be when faced with market randomness.
It really shakes your confidence in attributing success.
It does. The book uses Nero's story and others to question our assumptions. We're just so quick to attribute success in volatile fields like trading to inherent traits, right?
Like, oh, he's successful because he has high serotonin or something.
Exactly, or a specific personality type, when the reality might be simpler and frankly, more unsettling. They just got lucky.
Yeah.
Repeatedly, in a random environment.
This whole idea, leads to one of the book's most important concepts, which it calls alternative history.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of break that down? Why is judging performance based only on the one path we saw happen so misleading?
Okay, think about it this way. Every single event that unfolds in reality,
Hmm.
it's just one outcome from a vast unseen universe of possible outcomes.
Right.
The book uses a really stark analogy here, Russian roulette.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. If someone plays Russian roulette multiple times and survives, do we say they are skilled at it?
Absolutely not. No way. They're just incredibly lucky.
Incredibly lucky in that specific sequence of spins, you wouldn't evaluate their skill by only looking at the outcomes where they pulled the trigger and the chamber was empty.
Okay, yeah. That makes total sense.
But that is precisely what we often do when we evaluate success in random fields.
Hmm.
We look at a successful trader or investor or even a business person, and we analyze the one historical path they took, the one where they succeeded.
You don't see the failures?
We don't see the countless alternative histories, the other timelines where, with slightly different random market fluctuations or economic conditions or just chance encounters, their identical strategy or decisions led straight to failure.
Like that story the book tells, Salvation via Aeroflot,
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
where the trader gets stuck in traffic, misses his flight, and it accidentally saves him from a crash he would have been on.
And crucially, it prevents him from being in the market during a sudden downturn that day.
So his good decision to be elsewhere was pure random chance.
Completely accidental. But a journalist writing about him later might attribute his safety or his avoidance of the market crash to some kind of intuition or foresight.
Mistaking luck for skill.
Exactly. Simply because they are only observing the successful outcome in this one history.
And it's not just these big, rare events or specific anecdotes, right? The book argues we're constantly bombarded by something else that fools us.
It's just,
Noise.
yes, noise. The perpetual challenge of distinguishing noise from genuine information or signal.
Especially in data-rich places like finance or the news.
Definitely. Noise is just random fluctuation, meaningless variation. Signal is the underlying reality or trend you actually care about.
The example of dentists is really relatable here, I thought.
It is. It's a good one. You have a dentist whose income from their practice is relatively stable, predictable. That's the signal, right? Their skill and work paying off.
Mm.
But their investment portfolio, that's probably jumping all over the place day to day.
Wild swings.
Totally. Most of those daily swings, that's just noise, random market fluctuations.
So if you're looking at short-term movements, whether it's a stock price or, I guess, anything else.
You're mostly seeing noise. Exactly. Short-term observations are typically dominated by random noise.
Which makes it incredibly difficult to discern the true underlying signal.
Whether that's genuine skill, a real trend, or just, random variation.
And the media often makes this worse.
Oh, totally. Sadly, yeah. Presenting every minor market wiggle or daily news event as if it's crucial information, when so much of it is just noise distracting us from what actually matters over the long term.
And this feeds right back into that concept we touched on briefly, survivorship bias. The book dedicates a good chunk of its argument to this later on.
Yeah, the unseen cemetery, it's such a powerful metaphor.
Okay, explain that.
When we look at successful individuals, the billionaires, the acclaimed traders, the millionaires next door, we read about we are only seeing the survivors.
Right.
They are the ones who made it through a process that involved a huge amount of randomness, meaning there's this massive invisible group, an unseen cemetery, exactly, full of people who had similar intelligence, similar strategies, similar work ethics, maybe even better ideas,
But it just didn't get the lucky breaks.
but who, due to the random walk of events, failed. Their failures aren't publicized, they aren't studied, they don't get book deals, they're invisible.
Wow.
And this invisible graveyard severely distorts our perception of how much skill is actually required for success and how likely it is. It makes success look much easier and more skill-dependent than it truly is in many fields.
This is huge for anyone evaluating investment strategies, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you avoid that?
It's absolutely critical when people look at historical data to see how a strategy performed what's called backtesting, and they only focus on strategies that did well in the past.
They're falling right into the trap.
Directly into the trap of survivorship bias and what the book terms data mining. You're essentially finding patterns in past noise that happen to look good.
But they might not mean anything going forward.
Exactly. You're ignoring all the failed strategies that shared similar characteristics. You're studying only the tombstones of the successful and ignoring the entire cemetery.
Man, it seems like a lot of this comes down to the fact that as the book argues, we are fundamentally just not wired to understand probability and randomness very well. Like, we're probability blind.
The book definitely explores this quite a bit, yeah. It just draws on insights from behavioral economics, psychology, referencing work by pioneers like Kahneman and Tversky.
Right, the biases, guys.
Our intuitive brains, our System 1 thinking, are just not naturally equipped to deal with complex probabilistic concepts correctly.
Are there simple examples of this blindness?
Oh, plenty. Misunderstanding the results of medical tests is a classic one.
Okay.
Like, if a test is 95% accurate and you get a positive result, you might think, okay, 95% chance I have the condition.
Seems reasonable.
But if the condition itself is very rare in the population, a positive result is actually far more likely to be a false positive than a true one.
Because the base rate is so low.
Exactly. We focus on the test's accuracy and ignore the base rate, the actual prevalence in the population. Our intuition gets it wrong.
Or how surprising coincidences feel, right? Even when they are statistically quite likely.
Like the birthday paradox.
Yeah, where in a group of just 23 people, there's a better than 50% chance that two share a birthday.
It feels totally counterintuitive because our brains aren't wired for that kind of calculation.
So evolution didn't really prepare us for this?
Probably not. Our evolutionary history likely prepared us for a world that felt more deterministic, more immediate cause and effect. We're not really built for navigating complex systems thick with randomness and probability. The book even mentions the O.J. Simpson trial as a kind of public example where complex statistical ideas like conditional probability were widely misunderstood.
Leading to potentially flawed conclusions.
Potentially, yeah. Just showing how probability blindness can play out even in really high-stakes situations.
Okay, so if the world is this drenched in randomness and our brains actively fight against understanding it, how are we supposed to navigate this? Does the book just leave us feeling, I don't know, helpless?
No, not at all. Not helpless. While it definitely highlights the problem, it also touches on philosophical approaches that have grappled with uncertainty for centuries.
Okay.
One fundamental challenge it points out, particularly when discussing how we learn from experience, is the problem of induction.
Inferring a general rule from past observations, like the sun rising every day.
Precisely, saying, the sun has risen every day of my life, therefore it will rise tomorrow. In random systems, past patterns, no matter how consistent they seem, don't guarantee future outcomes.
Especially with those rare events lurking.
Exactly. The book references Karl Popper here and the idea of falsification.
Right, you can't prove theories true, only prove them false.
Kind of. We can't definitively prove scientific theories or models true based just on observed data, but we can prove them false if future data contradicts them. This skeptical mindset is crucial when dealing with the randomness of the world.
So be wary of theories or explanations.
That can't be disproven or just curve-fitted to past noise.
Yeah.
Maintain that skepticism.
And then the book brings in Stoicism, which feels like a bit of a pivot from philosophy of science.
Yeah.
How does ancient Stoic philosophy help with modern randomness?
It offers a really practical framework for living in an uncertain world. The core Stoic wisdom, as the book presents it, is to radically distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot.
Okay.
You cannot control external outcomes, random events, other people's actions. Those are subject to chance, to fortune.
Right.
What you can control are your own actions, your judgments, your attitudes, your character, how you respond internally to external events.
So focus your energy there and kind of let go of the outcomes.
Pretty much, yeah. Don't let your emotional state be tossed around by the noise of external fortune or misfortune, which is often random anyway. The book suggests maintaining a kind of personal elegance, composure, dignity, resilience in the face of random setbacks. Focus on your internal state rather than being purely reactive to the unpredictable external world.
So, okay, wrapping this up. What does this all mean for you, listening? We've taken a deep dive into the book's powerful argument that randomness plays a vastly larger role in life, markets, success,
Yeah.
than we intuitively grasp.
Yeah, much larger.
We've seen how our own cognitive biases make us prone to mistaking luck for skill, fixating on short-term noise, and misinterpreting probability in really fundamental ways.
We've touched on philosophical ideas, from the skepticism of induction to the practical resilience of Stoicism, as ways to maybe navigate this inherent uncertainty.
This deep dive really shows us that being truly well-informed isn't just about accumulating facts, is it?
No, it's more than that. It's about understanding the underlying forces, like randomness, that shape those facts and, crucially, challenge our interpretations of them.
It's a powerful call for maybe intellectual humility. in the face of uncertainty.
Definitely humility. And a healthy skepticism towards overly simple explanations for complex outcomes. Don't jump to conclusions about cause and effect.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, maybe something to think about. If success in fields heavily influenced by randomness is often more about luck than skill, and our brains are kind of wired to miss this,
Hmm.
how does that fundamentally change how you should approach seeking advice, evaluating experts, or even just understanding your own past achievements? Where do you go from there?